just like I'm not gonna make this look fancy.
Yeah. I'm just gonna test this for a second.
It is funny that I'm wearing it. Like I can't remember the last. I know the last time I wore a tie, it was at the national conference a year ago. Like,
No, just let it sit there.
oh, really?
Yeah, just
Okay.
talk to me.
Okay.
Yeah, just say something stupid. All right, just tell me about your practice. How'd you get into PT? And let me introduce everyone. This is Wes, and he's from Asheville, and we're here in Raleigh, North Carolina, at the NCPTA legislative day, trying to get our spinal manipulation bill passed. Cheers to that. So, Wes, introduce yourself and tell us how you got into PT.
So, Wes Miller, finished graduate school 13 years ago. It's been a while.
Where'd you go to school?
Went to school at University of Evansville. Did what at the time was a bachelor's, master's hybrid program, and the last year that existed. And at the end of PT school, drove down to Asheville, North Carolina, and that's where I've hung my hat for the last 13 years, save for a 1 year at a manual therapy fellowship program at University of Illinois in Chicago. My grandma told me to be a physical therapist. She just had her hip replaced and told me how nice her physical therapists were, and they got to spend time with their patients, and they had good benefits and could raise families, and it just seemed a lot easier than anything else that I was thinking of doing. So I applied to one PT school and got in.
Awesome.
And here I am.
Cool. How'd you get into private practice?
Yeah, so I worked for 1 year for a hospital, and then moved to a sports medicine clinic that was PT owned. And it seemed so nice to just have one degree of freedom from the person who was making all those decisions. So private practice was always sort of near and dear to me. And then my fellowship year, I spent another year at the University of Illinois in Chicago, which was all these layers of research and teaching. And I realized that that was not the sort of setting that I wanted to be in. I didn't like having 7 bosses. So finishing up my fellowship, I moved back into working for others in private practice, and then came to a point where it seemed like the most obvious, best, clear decision was to kind of go out on my own and give it a test and see how it worked out.
Yeah. So did you start right away in a cash-based practice, or did you do something different?
Yeah, so having been involved in advocacy and professional issues for a really long time, I when I decided to go out, I was at a national conference, and I talked to everyone from the head therapist at the Cleveland Clinic and University of Wisconsin hospitals to guys who owned 5, 6, 7 practices, and to people that like me now do small cash-based practices. And I just said, I'm 35 years old. What am I going to be doing for the next 30 years? And the only people that had good outlooks, positive outlooks on where they were going was the people that were doing primarily cash-based services that could dictate how they provided their care and dictate how they gave it to people. And then all the other people just said, we're trying to optimize our payer sources by doing more cash-based stuff.
Right.
So it seemed like, why not just skip the next logical step and see how it worked.
Awesome. Was there any, how long ago was this that you started?
Almost 2 years.
2 years ago.
2 years ago. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, awesome. And was there like 1 or 2 things that were like, they confirmed to you that this was like what you needed to do?
Yeah. So actually, even just the very first.
Oh my God! Look at this food.
Yeah.
Pork belly.
Awesome. We're gonna eat and talk.
That's right.
This is great.
Eat to enjoy, and then
All right.
napkins here for you.
Thank you so much.
All right, so tell us, what do you got on your plate?
So we've got a sort of a lettuce wrap. We've got some kimchi, some daikon radish, maybe carrot. I didn't say what the other one was. And some locally raised pork belly that lived and now will feed me here in the Raleigh area. So very excited.
Look at this. I got the bibimbap.
No, I got the bulgogi lettuce wraps. Yes, this looks fantastic.
So was there like one thing you were like that confirmed to you that you made the right decision?
Yeah. So really, the first weekend I opened, left my last practice on a Thursday. Friday morning, I went and signed a lease. And then spent the next 8 hours having existential crises on whether this was a good or terrible idea. And I got a Facebook message from a friend that evening that said, so my boyfriend is having jaw issues, and he's doesn't like getting care. He doesn't like talking to doctors. He doesn't have insurance. He doesn't believe in it, and he is kind of a private guy. So he wants like no other people around. And I'm like, wait a minute, that's exactly what I'm doing. Like, I have the skill set. This is what someone wants and is actually looking for, and I just happen to have planted myself in doing just that. And that was a really confirmatory moment. And then just as I went along, finding more and more people that had just been generally unsatisfied, not with physical therapy and not with manual therapy, but the delivery system. That they couldn't have it on their terms, they couldn't follow up when they wanted, that they couldn't have it the way they wanted, like they could maybe with other professional services that they used. And I realized, like, this is how I would want to access my care. And so it made it really easy to sell it. And honestly, what started happening is other people started selling it for me by telling other people, oh, I see my therapist once every 3 months. And they're like, well, how do you do that? So that discussion is just really logical, and ends up with a few connection points, and then they kind of end up in the office. It's been really, really pretty amazing. It's just like these self-confirming positive cycles of, I get to treat the way I want. I sleep really well at night. If people don't want the care, I say, great. I shake hands and I send them on their way. Yeah. And tell them to go find something else. And not in a way that you feel bad or it's a negative thing or you're worried about paying the bills or paying for someone to take, I can do it my way, and I can do it really nicely.
That's awesome.
It is.
Awesome. Let's eat some lunch and we'll get back to this.
I was down in Florida and with the kids, and the bartender at this resort we were staying at Universal Studios made my kids smoothies, and they're really pretty good. So like I drank half of one because we were just sitting by the pool, and my kid comes up and is like, Dad, where'd my smoothie go? And I'm like, I don't know, I think you drank more of it or something. Like, I was trying to like play it off, and he just stands there and stares at me, and the guy at the bar next to me says, men with beards have no secrets. So apparently I had smoothie all over my face. I was like, let me get you another one. Sorry about that. Totally had to eat that one.
That's awesome.
So
That's awesome. That's really great. So, after you take this bite,
yes, so you are gonna make me talk mid-bite. That's fine.
for a moment. Mm-hmm. You don't have to talk with your mouth full, but what I want you to do is tell me, what are the things you do? Like, what's your schedule during the week? Tell us about your marketing. Like, what are you doing for marketing? How do you get started? Where do you get patients?
Yeah, so that's been sort of an evolution over time. Is my weekly schedule kind of looks like, my sort of basic is like 8 to 4, Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. With some time in there, I'll block a little time to do this or that, or make sure I have a half hour to at least return phone calls and shovel some food in. But most days there's an hour in there somewhere, an open schedule place. People cancel, people have life things. I find as a parent myself and as someone who has stuff going on, I'm really generous with scheduling. Like, if people just are like, oh, I forgot, yeah, we have a discussion. If it happens more than once, they pay for the visit. But for the most part, I try to be generous, and people are appreciative of that. People are busy, people have stuff going on, people have things. So that's how that I find time to kind of get stuff done.
Life happens.
And I can make that decision because I don't have a lot of other people to pay. I don't have a secretary to cover the costs of. I don't wait 60 days to get paid for every visit. So, my typical day, somewhere in 8 to 4, I typically see somewhere on average like 6 patients a day. Tuesday I kind of work half a day, so maybe I see like 3 or 4 people. Thursdays I get off at 2 and have a standing appointment with my son. So it's really allowed me to be a lot more active as a parent, which is one of the things that's hard as a PT because you're booked on the half hour. And so you're like, oh, well, how can I get 3 hours in the middle of my day to go to the kids' elementary school and go do something? And I now have the flexibility and ability to do that because I just say I'm not going to work that period of time. And I can also be flexible. There's one day I started at 4 o'clock in the morning, right before a big endurance race that's in the Asheville area because lots of people had issues and they needed it tuned up about a week before the race. People just said, I'll come in at 6. I'll come in at 5. I'll come in at 4:30. So I said, okay. It's not something I do often, but it's just nice to have that flexibility and to be able to kind of work with people.
Yeah.
And then Tuesday mornings is my administrative day, which usually means I go for like a 2-hour run. And then
That's awesome. With some friends. And
yeah, sometimes with friends, sometimes just on my own, and put my headphones in and listen to a podcast, and go out in the woods and in the mountains. And then typically I'll come back in, grab a coffee, grab some breakfast, and then that's also tends to be marketing day, which might be going to have a coffee with a physician or a friend. I have connections with the university and some other places, so I may just drop off some stuff to the office, or just drop off some paperwork by hand for offices I know that
Did
are
you
going
say
to
you were giving out Krispy Kreme donuts?
No, not Krispy Kreme. No. I live in Asheville, North Carolina. We have handcrafted. There's actually 4 different donut places that I will choose from to bring to people. So that's running stores or offices. Sometimes I bring smoothies. It just depends what people like. Like I try to connect with people and see what is meaningful to them.
Right.
They're tokens of gratitude. That's really all they are. They could, a physician could care less about the cost of a donut, but if you know that they like X, Y, and Z, if they like this roast coffee, and you can bring it in for them. And it's not I'm not cold calling. I'm not like, hey, I'm the marketer. It's like, no, hey, I'm Wes. I'm the guy that you know, and our kids go to school together, and I'm in the community. I go out and do these things within this community. It's really an authentic experience rather than like knocking on a door and someone trying to not let you back into the back of the place. Like it's nice because I know the places I'm going to get invited in.
Right.
Or the place where it's like, yeah, let's grab a beer, let's go for a run. There's a dentist I go bike ride with about once every 3 months, because that's where he wants to talk.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So we might as well do it somewhere where we're both having fun.
Yeah.
And that's really turned into that's my marketing. I mean, really, and then having a good website and some, intermittent social media use. I'm not a huge user, but it's also a place people interface, and they get information and they see what I'm up to and what I'm about. So, and then having a website that educates people, lets people know what they're in for, tends to be the most helpful thing. And then it's just a place people can direct other people to. I mean, the 2 running stores, 2 of the main running stores in town are my 2 best referral sources.
Yep.
I get a physician referral maybe 1 or 2 a month. So like I treat more physicians than I get referrals from physicians.
Right.
So, and it's
Same here.
it's the conversations that people have when you're not around.
Right.
Where
What
you walk in.
What are you doing at the running stores to get them?
Yeah, so honestly, it was
Like on your side.
it was really initially just a value prop, just walking in and having a reputation before of being someone who's active themselves, and having been around for 10 years, they knew my name. One store I'd worked with for a long time, another store I had not, which is now my best referral source, and it was really about coming in and talking to them about issues they had as runners, as athletes themselves, and demonstrating that I knew what I was talking about.
Yeah.
And not just trying to sell them something, and then giving them the opportunity to come in. I think maybe, I don't even know if I did any free little consults or free running analysis. I think that all the visits were sort of paid for, but I was like, I'm going to show you why this is a valuable service, and they've become my biggest advocates.
That's awesome.
I got a Facebook message from one of them that says, hey, I've had a great opportunity lately to pass out a lot of your cards and talk to people about why you might be helpful to them. I hope they're connecting with you.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm like, is this magic? Like, it feels magical to me because the phone just rings, or people go online and book an appointment, and I don't really have to do very much at this point. There's certainly work on the front end, but it's really just about now just being a good steward of those relationships.
And this is 2 years in.
Almost 2 years in, yeah.
When did it start to feel like automatic?
Ooh, that's probably been something I would say in the fall of this past year. So it was probably about 15 months in.
Yeah.
And about 6 months in, I knew that this was like a viable thing. And so at that point, I actually started putting a little more effort into what's the long view going to be. And so it's taking some time to really consider that aspect of things, and do some marketing stuff, and having brochures and having flyers and having banners and all that stuff. That was about 6 months in, and taking those times to really like cultivate some of those relationships and be out and about and be found. Did some workshops, but honestly, what's worked a lot better than workshops is just being the guy who's out running, be the guy who's at a race, the guy who's out at a bike race, the guy who's hanging out at the bike shop, the guy who is at a dinner party and people are like, oh, this is my friend Wes, who's also my PT, who's really good. Like,
So how can we thank for referring you, Wes? Right? Like it's like for me, it's who can we thank for referring you? It says I know you or Aaron or something.
Yep. Or like 7 names come up, or like a Facebook forum that it's for ultra runners because we chat, and I'm not just chatting about like, oh, your injury, da da da. It's like posting pictures of the mountains that I run up, and like me with my dog, and me out hiking in the woods with my kids. Like, yeah, it's an authentic interaction experience, not me trying to tailor the best Facebook post in the world to like sell people and coming in for my workshop. Workshops are more like buying pizza for friends, and then talking about what I can do, or evaluating their issues and trying to help them figure out. Like Tuesday night, I do a track workout, and one of my clients was like, I sprained my ankle. I've got the Boston Marathon in 2 weeks. I was like, let me look at it. It took 2 minutes, little tailor issue, quick little manipulation. Told her to do a little soft tissue work, and she finished the workout.
Yeah.
Like she could barely walk coming into it, but needed to train because it was Boston. So, and people see that. People are like, wow, thank you. And she brought beer by my office the next day. So I think that's it. It's just being part of a community and giving people an authentic connection to someone that they know cares about them. It doesn't have to be like I'm going to call them up and see how everything's going or how are their kids, but like as a healthcare provider, I don't just provide like my good hands or my smart brain, but like that ability to connect and to understand what they're going through.
You're also not floating on a level that's inaccessible to other people.
I don't know how to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so much in this process, because part of it is about setting the value proposition, and it's not my value proposition or insurance's value proposition. It's what do they want, and really trying to ask better questions about what they're looking to get out of their session or their time with me. Really helps me tailor what they want. Some people, I've had sessions where people just sat and talked for an hour about their training program, about their issue, and they walk out and they felt like they got a great PT session. Unfortunately, if you're in an insurance-based paradigm, if you don't touch that person and do stuff, that was $0 that you just earned, even though you provided your great expertise and all the cumulative effect of all the continuing education and knowledge that you built up over the years. So to me, like, that's the awesome part of being in a non-third party scenario.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. Eat some more food.
People, what you have to do, like, that's not necessary.
Yeah.
That's not. It's not right that that's a situation. It's like I think there's a little cartoon that was like Breaking Bad if it happened in the UK. Like Walter White walks into the office, he's like, I've got cancer and my daughter, and they're like, that's okay. We'll take care of all of your health issues, and your family will be taken care of if you do happen to die due to this. And he's like, thank you, and walks out. Like, it's over.
Yeah.
Like, what a ridiculous premise to have to deal with.
That's a cool wallet. Is that the Timbuktu wallet or something?
It is. It's all I've had for 12 years. The other one died, and
That one's lasted that long?
No, this is my second. For me, the other one lasted like 8-9 years. And so this one's like 3 years old. Yeah, it's my wallet of choice to put all my sweet PT cash in.
That's right.
It's also my cash register. Not say, but like, there's what should be deposits for the last 3 days.
Yeah.
Because I haven't had time to go to the bank.
Yeah.
So, do you want me to like rub some money on myself?
I've got
while we
look
do
at this. Here's all my checks.
Oh, dude, checks are the worst. And people are like, do you want me to write you a check? I'm like, no, just use Square. Like, I know I paid $2, but it's so worth it to not have to go to the bank.
I know. I'm like, kids, we're gonna go to the bank. They're like, no.
It's on the way home. Sometimes I walk. Like, it's like half a mile to the bank, but it's just like, I don't want to do it about the checks. I just want it to magically appear there. And the nice thing about Square is like everything's tracked.
Yeah.
And I'm like, good, it's all tracked. Like, it's all right there, and I can run metrics and I can do all this stuff. And I don't have to think about it.
So awesome. So I just got two more questions.
Two more questions.
What's your the number one thing that you did like wrong? Did you make a mistake that you were like, that I shouldn't have done that, or I wish I had done something different?
Yeah, early on, so I started framing things in like initially it was like, how much does this cost? How much does this cost? How much is this online scheduling program? How much is this? How much is QuickBooks? How much do all these things like cost in like real dollars? And if it was my personal budget, would I pay out for those things? And what I started to realize the reality is what does it get me, and how many hours am I willing to work to cover that cost? And when I started thinking of those in sort of real terms, and comparing things, so like online scheduling program with a payment thing costs like $80 to $100 a month, and I was like, okay, I need to spend some time setting it up. But man, that $80, gosh, $80, that's a bunch of money. And then I started looking, and if my current fee is $120 an hour, and I'm like, wait a minute, if this online scheduling program saves me an hour a month, it has just paid for itself.
Right.
Because I found as I was getting a little busier, I was spending so much time on the phone, talking to people, telling them stuff, chatting, and rescheduling appointments and things like that. And I'm like, wait a minute, like I'm spending like 6 to 8 hours a week doing this, and I spend $80, and suddenly that's taken care of. It's like, that's a no-brainer.
Right.
Like I started paying someone a friend of mine who's now in physical therapy school. I paid her to take all my documents, scan them in, put them into a file, and make sure that they were all there. If they weren't, she would send like a copy to the person's house to have them fill it out. Like $20 an hour, and that's paying really good money for just administrative work. And I'm like, yes, I'm happy to help this person through PT school, in doing something that an hour, like if it took me an hour or 2 hours, that's hundreds of dollars. If I pay her, it's a small amount. So being a lot more rational, rather than worried about like, what's this going to cost me? Like in dollar terms, like what's this going to get me? Like how am I going to benefit? And how is this going to make my processes smoother? And I wish I would have been a little bit more willing to do that up front and get out of the fear worry state and get into the like, okay, I need to make this work as best as possible for me so that I can optimize my time and doing the things that really matter for me.
Right. Awesome. No, I totally agree. Yeah. That's something that I'm working on myself. Like all I
just
can do,
talking about this.
I can do it better, faster than teaching someone else. But in the long run, it makes more sense to get someone else to do it for less money, and especially if it's a less.
And sometimes the assumption that you can do it better, faster, is wrong. Right. Just because you're like, no, I know how to do it. But that doesn't mean you're the best person. This other person is much more organized than I am. She gives me a nice spreadsheet. She gets the files. She chops them up for me, and she's better than I am at it. I'm like, oh, wow. Like I asked her how long it took for her to do all this document. She's like, oh, that was like an hour and a half. And I'm like, that used to take me like a whole Friday night.
Right.
Oh, I get Friday night back for $20. That's money well spent.
Yeah.
So that this idea that because you're cash-based and independent, you have to do it all. Because you want to keep that margin and you want to do things your way. Like your way can also mean taking all those things you don't really want to do or aren't your best thing and give it to someone else.
Right.
And it doesn't take away from your independence or thing. Thing like that.
Awesome. What's your best recommendation for someone who wants to start a cash-based practice?
Yeah, I think the biggest part in this whole experiment, it's not an experiment anymore. Like it takes a really good offer for me to go do anything else right now. Which the beauty of it is I can be totally open to doing something completely different because my overhead is so low. I just leave my space. I take all my equipment. I can sell some. A lot of it's stuff I would take home and just have as a home gym anyway. It all just moved over to my office. And so there's really no loss there. So if the best opportunity in the world came that way, I could take it tomorrow, and that would be awesome. So what I would say is really decide what's your value proposition. That has been by far what I'm really grateful for. Is I did a lot of continuing education, my manual therapy fellowship, bike fitting, running analysis, being a runner. So I had all these sort of skills that happened to guide me right into this niche of people that were very good matches for what my skill set was and were very willing to pay out of pocket for that. So know what you're good at and know who wants your service, because the issue is if you just try and do the same PT you're doing in the normal clinic right now and just decide you're going to do it cash-based tomorrow, no one will come. or maybe a small group of people will come, but it's really tough to do that. You have to decide what makes you special, what makes you different, what makes you interesting, and it doesn't have to be something magical. It's just like, I can do it better. I can do it more individualized. I can do it in less visits because you get what you want. I can do it at your house. Like, it doesn't have to be anything that's like, you don't have to go move your family to Chicago and do a manual therapy fellowship. You don't have to go to every continuing education course. It just has to be what is your value proposition to the people out there, and that can be whatever you want to make out of it.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. If someone wants to find out more about you, where do we do that?
Yeah, antifragilephysicaltherapy.com. That's one of the other things that I actually really was grateful about is I got to name my practice. If you haven't read Anti-Fragile by Nick Taleb, who also wrote Black Swan, he's a quant, he's an economist, he's a philosopher. And I don't know many other physical therapy practices that are named after economics philosophy books and about your sort of worldview. And people thought it was strange. Though one person was like, "Oh, it's an A. It'll be in the front of the alphabet." But Google doesn't really care about alphabetical order, so it doesn't really matter. But antifragilephysicaltherapy.com. You can, I guess, find me on Facebook if you want to kind of see. You can follow me on Strava. I'm out running, biking, around, doing all the stuff. And awesome. That's probably that's it.
Yeah, that's so great. Thanks, Wes. Appreciate it.
Cool.
That was
My pleasure.
very awesome. Cheers.
Thanks for lunch, and we'll go.